right, welcome back to the Real Talk Show. We are so happy to have you here with us again. We always have a good time on this show. We have real talk, great discussions, but believe me, we have a good time. So, for everybody else who may not know who we are the Real Talk Show, hosted by myself, Dr. Kim Brown Barber, better known as Dr. Kim from Journey to Becoming, and
Rochelle Marie Lawson, known as the Queen of Feeling Fabulous.
All right. And so this platform, this live stream, this radio, whatever you're hearing it on, whatever, mode that you're hearing on, this podcast is designed specifically for the women in mind, right? Mindset of connecting and inspiring and motivating, supporting and uniting women all around the world. It's an international thing, you guys, okay? It's a safe place where we can come together and have some real talk about real issues, that's facing us in these times. And so we know if the women get together and have some honest, good discussion, we can make a difference and we can solve the problems of the world. Just give it to us. So I'm excited that everybody is here today. A little bit more about myself. I'm with Journey to Becoming, which, of course, I'm the CEO and founder of Journey to Becoming, which is a platform for women and for college students where we're here to help to guide them on their journey, because it's all in the journey. It's not in the goal. It's all in the journey as you're getting to the different goals that you set for yourself. So being able to have somebody to show you how to be accountable, how to get there, and helping you to map it out and having you to be a part of that, and being able to surround you with a supporting community, right? And guide. So that's a little bit about me. I won't get deep into who I am. You can always go and, everybody Googles people. Just Google me, you find more out, right? Google Journey to Become, you find more out. And Rochelle, why don't you tell them a little bit about the Queen of Feeling Fabulous?
Hello, everybody. I'm Rochelle Marie Lawson, known as the Queen of Feeling Fabulous. I am a 7-time best-selling author, 2-time #1 best-selling Amazon author, international best-selling author, multiple business owner, top 50 women-owned business in Silicon Valley for many consecutive years with my first business that I started 31 years plus ago. And my second business is just helping women to create the life of their dreams. So I help facilitate the transformation, and I focus on wellness, wisdom, and wealth. And so I'm here with all of you to just have a really good time tonight.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And so we are so happy to have our panelists with us tonight. We will let them introduce themselves. Let's start with you, Lisa.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Lisa. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree about a year ago from Cal State Monterey Bay. My major was collaborative health and human services, and I had a concentration in social work. I have a broad range of different experience working with middle schoolers, high schoolers, and traditional age youth. And right now I currently work for a nonprofit with homeless youth, 18 to 24. But I'm also in my master's program for my social work at the same time.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome. All right, let's go to you next, Angela.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Kim and Michelle, for having us. I am Angela Morrow. I am a mom, a working mom during this pandemic, so that has been really fun. My undergraduate degree was from Indiana University in human development and family studies and psychology. I dual majored. And then I also have a master's degree in business, which I have kind of used during my career the last, 15 years. I currently work for the military, and I put on events and I do a lot of PR for them. I work with different organizations here on the Monterey Peninsula, just making sure that our military servicemen and women are taken care of while they're here for their stay studying MPS or DLI.
A minute. Okay, my mic must have went gone. Okay, here we go. Here we go. It's live. These things happen when it's live. Oh my goodness. It's all good. It's all good. I was talking and was like, okay, do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? No, we don't. We can't hear you. Sorry. Cheryl, talk to us.
Funny. I could have assumed what you were saying.
He's like, but I'm not gonna do that.
But I'm like, I'll just wait.
And Rochelle had this look on her face like, oh my God, what is she doing? Okay,
Hello.
Cheryl. Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm Cheryl Poland, and I am in the Tampa, Florida area. And I am originally from Philadelphia, where I was raised. And so I spent 20 plus years in the corporate world as a corporate professional in human resources. And then I ventured out and got really brave and started my own business. And that's been over a decade ago. And I started off as a life coach, but quickly transitioned out of that to now I do brand strategy development. It's actually it's personal brand identity development is what I do. I try to make that distinction. I have done TED Talk. I have written a book. I used to own a publishing company, so I've published about 50 women authors across the country. So I have all of these beautiful things that I package all together and call it my iconic personal brand. And that's what I help multifaceted women do for themselves.
All right. Now, you guys can hear me, right? Just want to make sure I'm just talking away. All right. Well, that is awesome. So you see, we have some wonderful women with us this evening that's going to really bring so many great perspectives. That's what I love. So many great and diverse perspectives of women and careers during pandemic times. Yes, that's what our topic is this evening. Very important. So one of the things that I've noticed is that, of course, women and careers has always been a conversation, right? For us in our communities, because it's been different. We've seen it evolve from so many things of where before women couldn't even get a job. And then to evolve to where women were only getting certain types of jobs. And then we saw, ceilings broken, like even by our co-host Rochelle, into, breaking ceilings and where women were getting jobs in male-dominated industries. And then, we started seeing them, trying to break into more of the senior level positions. And we've just seen a myriad of things, right? But what's really been happening during the pandemic times, have we stopped to really look at what's going on? One of the things that when I was doing some research on this and found out that one of the research companies, McKinsey & Company, who are very valid. They do a lot of research in higher education, but they also do a lot in the workplace. And one of the things they have shown is that that the women's careers have slowed a little bit during this pandemic, during the COVID-19 workplace time, because what's happening, not a whole lot, but just enough for us to take note and say, okay, let us take note of what's happening, and then go from there. Like entry-level jobs back in 2015, it was like about 46%. And of course, in 2020, it was still right around 46. It was flat, right? And then you had what you see more in the manager and senior management, where they started seeing like 2 and 3% lower than it was about 5 years ago. And especially even before 2019, they were able to see that there was a difference between 2019 and 2020, of course, because of the pandemic. But they're seeing that and saying that it's a lot dealing with the daycare, because a lot of women had to kind of just stop and say, when that happened, according to this research, a lot of women had to stop and say, oh, wait a minute, let me stay home and take care of the kids, right? Even though we were all sheltering in place, but after we stopped sheltering in place, and people were going back to work, a lot of women didn't go back to work. Some of them decided that, they had to take care of their kids because the daycares weren't open yet. So, somebody had to figure out something to make a decision and sacrifice. So my question to you first is, what do you see that's happening during this pandemic with women in careers. And do you think that the daycare situation could be handled differently so that it could make it a little bit level the playing field a little bit for all genders? So I want to start with that question first, and I want to go to Cheryl first.
This is, thank you, Dr. Kim. This is interesting because my oldest daughter and I just had this conversation.
Wow.
Yesterday. Literally, she's of a certain age and she's talking about having her first child. And we had the conversation about daycare in particular, because she was asking me my experience when she was younger, with daycare, even though she was from a 2-parent household, we both worked.
Exactly.
So, in terms of like what I think I'm seeing women do that are still in the corporate space, I think the beauty of what I'm seeing is that women are starting to feel, they're starting to give themselves permission to make decisions that work for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're starting to feel like, if I decide that I want to stay on my corporate path and, I still have to deal with the daycare situation, they're still looking for ways to handle that, because we know daycare is an expense. It's a huge expense. But I think just being able to have the freedom to decide what works best for them. To not feel as if, they're being dictated to that, and they feel tied to, well, if you can't do it this way and you can't be present and you can't, all the rules, that they feel enough freedom to say, I'm going to find another way that works, that works for me and my family. And it might mean that I leave where I am and go someplace else. So yeah, I think the permission, that more women are giving themselves permission to make decisions that work for them.
Okay, great. Thank you. What about you, Angela? What are you seeing or experiencing?
So from a personal experience, I'll start there. I work for the military, as I briefly said earlier, so we are considered essential. So although others got to shelter in place, which I almost feel like that could have helped as a parent, because you could stay home with your children. The schools were shut down. A lot of daycares were shut down. And so actually I could see that as a positive opportunity for women specifically, because we do kind of take on that mother and nurturing role for our children. We just historically speaking, regardless if you're a 2-parent household or not, I feel like it's always kind of been the mothers and that role of the woman to make sure that the children are taken care of. It's just kind of the way it's always been back biblical times. And so I feel like those women who were able to have the opportunity, it almost made a little jealousy, to be honest. For those of us who did have to work outside of the home, I almost felt like I was being a bad mother because I wasn't able to stay home and take care of my kids and, make sure that they were okay with their schooling and whatnot. So it definitely is very difficult, especially if you don't have a village, so to speak, as in like family or close friends to also help. Because, I had to go to work specifically. So for those of us, or people in healthcare fields, they were essential. There weren't many options. And the ones that were very particular because, the schools are shut down, daycares are shut down. What do us essential workers do with our children? Like I said, we had to make sure that they're taken care of. So I feel like it was almost a struggle for those who still had to work. It would have been more of a benefit, actually. I would say if I was able or to have that opportunity to stay home. Now I'm speaking freely for those that stayed home. They're probably like, oh my goodness, these kids are driving me crazy. They're always asking for a snack. But
it's always two sides. It's always
right.
Two sides.
There definitely always is two sides, but I definitely feel like it was a struggle, and it continues to be a struggle. Because, for example, if your kid gets sick during school, they're out for 14 days.
Yeah.
Even though the pandemic, they've gotten the vaccines, and I feel like we're kind of getting to a better place, it's not over. And with these new variants, I feel like it's almost going to get worse, and it's about to be flu season coming up. So that's something that not only have we had to deal with, the past almost 2 years, but I think that this is going to be ongoing. And so one thing that I think we also need to think about as, mothers is what are we going to do in the future? What happens? We've I feel like we should have taken these past 2 years and like almost developed a plan of what we can do for working mothers, because there's just so much on our plate, and it's been difficult. I definitely have to say, and I've seen a lot of my other coworkers that have school-age children. We kind of all have dealt with the same thing, and it's been a struggle. It's definitely a balance, because you want to perform well in work, but you also want to make sure your kids are taken care of and in a safe environment. So it's definitely been a struggle.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I mean, I don't want to go to the next question yet, but just as they put a pin in that, because I want to come back to asking, do you feel, for everybody, would you, I know Lisa's not at that point yet, not yet, but would you feel limited? Do you feel limited because of that, of what you're bringing up? So hold that point, Angela. I want to come back to that. So Lisa, what about you? Now you're actually, just coming out into the, the career world, and you came out during the most wonderful time to come out. I keep telling people, stop calling you guys the COVID class, right? You guys are the 2020 class. Leave them alone, right? But those who came out during that time, you as a woman, it was already a difficult time, and you're a woman, so that's different things that you may have to deal with or not deal with. How did that look for you as going out into the career world during that point in time? Did you see differences? I mean, what did you see?
For me personally, it was actually a really rough time to jump into the career force. I was lucky enough to still have my on-campus job at least half of the summer. But during that whole process of those 2 months, it took like around 3 months. I was applying. I had over 10 interviews over the summer, and I was being ghosted, or I was just being not letting know like why I didn't meet the qualifications, or even if I thought I did. But I think some of the biggest issues I saw is because I did graduate when I was 20. So some of these agencies do have a contract with, say, the county or different places where you have to be a minimum of 21 years old. And I wasn't going to turn 21 until, 4 months later. So my birthday's in September. So when I was applying, I was just like, I had to cross off all these programs that I really wanted to work with. And for liability purposes, I wasn't able to be a qualified applicant for that. And that drew down a little bit my confidence, because before I graduated, I really thought, I was like, as long as I have the experience, I should be able to get a job. And I worked really hard to widen my horizons, all my different experiences. I worked all of my college years. Those 3 years, I spent so many hours getting experiences in high schools, like advising, doing higher ed, student affairs, to make me a very qualified, well-rounded applicant. And to think at the end of the day, once I got the degree, that wasn't enough. And I think that was a big issue for a lot of my classmates as well, because I mean, a lot of people were older than me, but it's still, we were approaching this avenue where they didn't know who they wanted to hire or what they were looking for, or the uncertainty of different programs. Because I know I did get offered a position in my hometown in Bakersfield. However, 2 weeks later, they retracted that offer due to COVID, because they were no longer going to be able to open their program. So they weren't going to need the position that I was going to be hired for. So it had all these different factors of like, okay, what's next, or what do I do? Because it's so much of the unknown. And I did want to touch on the original question that you did ask, because I think I've seen this a lot with my peers, is that the younger generations of mothers who are parenting and working, I think especially with culture, it's the lack of knowledge and the information that's available, especially growing up first generation. There's just information that our parents were never aware, so they never taught us. So being first gen, it's up to us to be able to do that research. But if we don't have that foundational support of a network or anything like that, pursuing careers, you don't know what to look for. Like one thing that isn't childcare, but when I was for my first full-time job, a 401k, a 403b, retirement plans, insurance. I was like, what is all this information? Like, I don't know what any of this is. And that's the case for a lot of my fellow peers who are first gen. Like, there's just so much that we don't know, and we just got to live in the moment and figure it out.
See, you bring up another great question. Man, I have so many questions that are going on in my head right now. You ladies are awesome. I mean, you brought up, I love it because we get to hear from generations to generations to generations of women in the careers during pandemic and what it looked like for them. So I'm hearing from you that it wasn't only just the pandemic that was a factor. It was a factor that you were a first gen going into the career world, and the pandemic playing a big factor of you even landing a job. So, you know, wow, we knew they had impacts, but I don't think we even thought about, how it's impacting several different dynamics of, well, what about the first gen? What about, you know, other people who are in different situations coming out into the career world during the pandemic, what that looks like. So, you know, I know my co-host Rochelle got something to say on it. Come on, Rochelle.
Well, I have, I do have something to say. I think, with the pandemic and what's been happening with women, it's not new. It's something that's just had a microscope shined on it now, or magnifying glass shined on it now, because of the pandemic. But none of it is new. We've always struggled to have issues with regards to our child care in, in the workplace. I mean, here I all those years ago when I first started that business, that corporation, I had kids, I was going to school, and I worked a job in the day, worked my business in the day, and was an emergency room trauma nurse at night. And my husband, he was busy traveling and doing stuff with the business. So I had childcare issues. I had to find somebody to take care of my kids at night. And I was not by my family, so I didn't have family access. So it's always been an issue for us women because we have been forced, due to the economic situation of our country, we've been forced to go from inside the home to outside the home in order us to be able to just survive at some sustainable level, so to speak. And with regards to the pandemic, 5.4 million women have lost their jobs versus 4.4 million men. There's been an $800 billion loss of revenue or income for women during the pandemic. That's huge. It hasn't affected men in that capacity. There's less pay, and there's no child care. And 1 in 4 women are struggling to make ends meet. So that's huge. And again, not new statistics. It's just now that the magnifying glass is being put upon us women, and it's given women I think an awakening as to a light is shining on something that we've kind of put under the rug, so to speak, because we've had to work, right? But now a light is being shined on. It's like, what do I do if my kids have a cough and they get sent home from school now that school's back in for children and I've got to work? Or I'm, a single parent, particularly the single parent moms. Like, what do they do? The kids just have them, so to speak. Not everybody has a village anymore to raise their families. A lot of people have moved away from their intermediate families. So, you're kind of isolated. And the pandemic has really hit African-American women the hardest because we, for one, struggle to be equally recognized in pay and our wherewithal to begin with. And now that they've taken the access to childcare that we've had available to not just African-American women, but the lower socioeconomic women, it's just a continual struggle. I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's a beautiful thing because on a positive note, there's been a lot of women that have discovered they didn't like their damn job in the first place, and they were just in there because they had they needed to pay bills, right? Secondly, they discovered that they have something that they're passionate about, and they can take that passion and turn it into a purpose and make that purpose a profit. So a lot of women have started up business. I talked to a gal today who she made $1 billion mistake in working for Goldman Sachs during the pandemic. And it was corrected and all that. She took money out of the company instead of putting that money into the company. It was an accident. But what she realized was she wasn't happy in that job. And no matter it came with the title that she worked for Goldman Sachs, she wasn't happy. And what she discovered during the pandemic was something that she was happy and was passionate about. And now she's helping women to discover how to prevent themselves from being overwhelmed and burnt out in their business, careers, and life. So there's been some good things. And I think women are beginning to recognize the strength that they have within themselves to be able to go forward and survive, because we're survivors. We're the strongest species on this planet. So we're going to survive no matter what. We're going to take care of our babies no matter what. We may not take care of ourselves, but we're going to make sure our babies are taken care of. So it's just been very interesting just to watch, all that's going on and all these things that are now just coming to the forefront, but they're not new problems. They've always been around. It's just the pandemic has magnified so many issues that we have in this country today.
Totally. You have hit the nail on the head, and that's what we're seeing all across the board. The pandemic just basically highlighted issues that were already there across the board, no matter where it was, or, and so then it becomes, people start talking about, how do we correct this? What do we do? And it's like, okay, but we should have been looking at how to correct it before, but now it's in our face. We have to figure out something, right?
Right.
And one of the questions I really would like to go back to, and especially asking while we have, generationally diverse group, to be able to ask the question of how do we help our younger sisters as they come into the career workforce, especially being first, and how do we help them to have them to be ready to come in, especially at a time like this? Those sisters who have come in during, just like Lisa was saying, a lot of her peers, that had to go into the workplace in 2020. How do we talk to those sisters? Because those sisters are hearing us too. They're listening to us too. How do we help those sisters? What kind of advice do you have that we should do, or you think you should do? But us as a village, how do we help our sisters? Let's start with you, Angela.
That's a really great question. And I like a few of the points that Rochelle even brought up that kind of almost tie into this question.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely has been an issue, and it definitely has been almost a magnifying glass. But I think women need to find their value. We need to know what we are worth as a mother and as a professional.
Mm-hmm. Is that the drop the mic? Is that the drop the mic, Rochelle? We always get so you guys know.
You know what? I'm
show.
gonna pop off the camera for a minute, but I've got something. I'm gonna come back with something that'll be like, bam.
That's what I want to know.
I love it.
So just so you guys know, we always have this thing on our show called Drop the Mic Moments. And we always say, that's a drop the mic moment, and we drop the mic. So just know when she comes back, we always have something new that she's dropping her phone.
I love it.
She's going to bring it. So keep talking, Angela.
I love it. Well, that's really what it is. It's just, you're so funny. Women, we need to know our value and what we're worth.
Yes.
Like I said, both as a mother, I have 2 school-age children, and as a professional, and finding that balance.
Yes.
Is really difficult. And if you're not a mother, just being a woman in general, depression is on the rise, specifically in women. There is a lot on our plate. We have to, perform up to society's standards, and we forget about taking care of ourselves. And mental health is very, very important. So I would say not only just knowing your value, but making sure that your sisters are doing okay. Whether it's just saying, hey, let's go get a cup of coffee. Or checking in with a text and like, hey, how are you doing? I haven't heard from you in a couple days. Just checking in and making sure they're okay. And if there's anything that we can do, because women need to support each other. There's so much of a divide in this country right now, whether it's race or gender, or now it's vaccinated versus unvaccinated.
I know, right? It's like always a division, right?
It's always something. It really and truly is. And we just need to make sure that we are taking care of our sisters, making sure that we're okay mentally, and just even reiterating your value and what you're worth, because women have a voice and our voice
Yes.
is powerful. And when we are taken out of the workforce to take care of our children or whatnot, that's going to make a big statement to
Oh, yes.
to everyone, to our supervisors, to other businesses, to society as a whole. Because
Yes.
you know, without us, not a lot would get done in this world. They need us. They need
I
us.
say
So
that all the
Another
time.
one, another drop the mic,
I
another
say
drop the
that
mic.
all the time. And can
I
I say
love it.
something before I forget that Angela said?
No.
Because it's
Yes, go
important.
ahead.
It's important. If you are thinking about a sister, reach out and call her, text her. There's a reason why you're thinking about her.
That's
There's
right.
a reason why she came and
Yes.
crossed your thought. And the
I'll
reason why I
echo that.
say this is because my niece was putting, like, you know, if you ain't thinking about, you know, if you ain't thinking about me, I ain't thinking about you. I ain't gonna call you. And I had to, like, you know, why are you like that? If you're thinking about somebody, if you sit around and wait for somebody to call you,
That's
honey,
right.
you're gonna be waiting
You
a
can't do
long
that.
time. But if somebody crosses your mind and they haven't called you, so what? Reach out and call them, text them, check in with them, because there's a reason why they came across your mind. And you don't know that one phone call, text, whatever,
Make
may
a difference.
completely change them from a
Make
negative
a difference.
to a positive, and they feel loved, cared about, valued, even if it's just a text. Somebody's thinking about
Even
them.
if it's just
So
a text.
please, my sisters out there, reach out to fellow sisters, because we all need to come together and support each other. We're not in this by ourselves. We
That's
in this
right.
together, and together there's unity. And when there's unity, there's strength and power, and we need to do that. So, okay,
Exactly. No, please don't. You know, this is not the platform for that. So we thank you, because that's because I love it how you basically echoed and gave her Angela a high five with you just coming right there. Okay, that was just a boop. I love it. And you know what? I love it because generationally we have to get together. We've got to reach back and help someone. We can't say, well, I got mine. You can't say, well, me and mine. You can't say, well, it's all about me. You know, it's you need to be able to look and see, how do we help our sisters? How do we help ourselves? And then if you are in a position where you can reach back and help somebody and pull them up. It's okay. You don't have to be a crab mentality and, you know, and thinking that, you know, oh, they may get hired. Well, if they get hired, then it's good. Maybe they can pull you up and you can get there faster than you thought you were. Okay. But my point is we have to have that collective, like you said, mentality of being secure with who we are. Right. Angela said, knowing our value so that we can be able to help someone. Generationally, we already see, look at these women that are coming out in 2020. Lisa, I love you being on here because you're able to speak for that voice for that generation. They're saying we need help. Right. They're saying we need help. So we this is a women's platform. We can't just help those of us who are already in the careers and been doing it for 20, 30 years. And it's like, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. What about the ones who are coming behind us? What happens then?
Right.
You know, how do we prepare? How do we move them forward? How do we help them to get into the workforce and know what to do and what to look for? You know, all right, Cheryl, come on, talk to us.
Well, Rochelle, she really echoed exactly kind of what I was going to say. And she did it beautifully. But I was thinking, I was like, you know, one of the things that we can do, and I've done it for quite some time, is I actively align myself with organizations that are serving women in different ways for different things. And I've done it a number of times, and there is such fulfillment in that. You know, it's not, I'm not trying to get a client, I'm not trying to score business. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, hey, I'm here to help pull a sister, pull a woman forward. I did it with the Cherie Blair Women in Business Foundation. It's the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women in Business. And, you know, my person I was matched with, she was all the way across in Africa somewhere. I know it's a continent, but I can't remember exactly where she was. But I got to serve that young lady, you know, who had a fresh idea for what she wanted to do and how she wanted to build something and create legacy for her business. And there was such joy in me being able to do that, to sit,
Mhm.
to talk with her. So I highly recommend, if you can, just make time,
Mhm.
just make a little time
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
align yourself with an organization that's serving women and helping them, giving them a place to go, especially the younger generation that's coming
Mhm.
along. That's a great way to serve them, because
That's true.
they know that they have somewhere to go. And not only now, it doesn't just fall on you. They have a plethora of people and tools and resources that they can choose from. So
Yeah.
That's awesome. So now, Lisa, you tell us. Now, we've been talking about how we think we can help the next generation. We're talking about how we can help. What do you need? What do you want? How can we help?
I think one of the major things, especially in my master's program, that I'm learning is that it's just so important to have these conversations and have those
Mm.
people to have these tough conversations with, because this is like how you all were mentioning, some of these conversations divide some of the room. So even in a classroom, you have your side of people who are agreeing with this and agreeing with that, and that, like, it should be okay to have these conversations, because the way I see it, it's like, especially with the younger generations and with all generations, there's that cycle of silence, that cycle
Mm.
of that's continuing, that generational things that you learn from your parents. So it's like, if those
Mm.
cycles aren't broken, if those cycles aren't
Mm.
acknowledged, then it's change isn't gonna happen. Like, we're just gonna keep going and
Woo, drop the
seeing
mic, drop the
that.
mic, drop the mic.
We're gonna keep going in the same path that we're already in, and no change is gonna
Mm.
be created like that if we don't acknowledge the policies that are in place that are creating this barrier for all of the women. Then there's what's the conversation? If there's nothing being talked about, there's nothing that's going to be done. And I think, especially with my
Correct.
generation and the way I see in my peers, everyone's very proactive, everyone's very open to having these conversations.
Mhm.
But it's definitely finding those people who have been in the field longer, who are willing and have that time to spare, especially because as a professional, there's only a little bit of time that you could spare. But bringing in those 10 minutes to check in with someone, being like, what advice can I give you? Or
Mhm.
doing those real life scenarios and being like, this is happening to me right now. Like, have
Mhm.
you experienced this? How can I navigate this? And how can I advocate for myself? And it's
Mhm.
learning those tactics and stuff like that. And definitely, I always think it definitely starts with the younger generation, like not even just college level, like before middle schoolers, high schoolers. It's never too early to start these conversations, because even though everyone thinks the younger generations don't know what they're talking about, they know. And you can't
Mm.
hide these realities from them and expect
Mm.
them to be hit in the face with all of this right when they get to the real world, which is
Mm.
post high school and stuff like that.
I love it. I
Very,
love it.
very good
I
point. I
love
like how
it.
she said about getting the
You
middle
are right on
schoolers.
it. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. You're
I
right
agree
on it
with you,
because
Lisa,
that is so important. Go
very
ahead,
important. I think
Rochelle.
we do need to start with the middle schoolers, girls. But the other thing is the younger generation needs to let us know. They need to tell us what they need, not expect us to figure out what they need. And I think there a lot of times they don't either know how to articulate it or how to approach someone that they maybe want to mentor them or to be that buddy, so to speak, to help them. So it has to work both ways. They have to articulate what they're not getting and what they need in order for us to help them with what they need and what they want. And that doesn't happen all the time either.
Right.
Lisa might be a special gal at the age of 20, but not every 20-year-old girl is like Lisa and can articulate what she
What she
feels that
wants
she
and needs.
needs. Exactly.
Yes, exactly. But I think there are good points on both
Very
sides, and I
good.
think that Lisa, I think is really important of what you said is that we have to have more of these conversations, so that you can find out what you need, right? Or you can articulate it, right? Or we can ask, what do you need, right? And having time, like Cheryl was talking about, taking time and just, even dedicating, to whether it's through an association or even if it's not something that is more formalized as an association, there are women all around you whether it be at work or whether it be in a social environment, or wherever you are, there are women all around you that you can ask, what can I do, right? Schools, and if you have kids, you have, they'll, everybody, you have women, females all around you. So it's we can be able to help each other, taking that time to do that. And I loved also, Lisa, you said about learning how to advocate for yourself. And that's good, because you're right. That's a learned skill. You do have to learn that, because you don't just come out just knowing, okay, I need to say this, but you can say, I need help. You may not know what it is or what it looks like, but you can just say, I need help. And then maybe at that point we can be able to, from generation to generation, to help you to know what that is that you're needing help with, right? But I love how we're having the conversation to start to see that, okay, yeah, we're going out here, we're needing this help, but at the same time, the other, our generation is saying, okay, but tell us what you need, right? And so that we can be able to help you, because we want to help you, right? So these conversations get us talking and knowing what we need to do. So my question to all of you next, I know my time is moving, man. I just looked up at it. Okay, I had 2 more questions, but I may only be able to get 1 more in, but it's okay. So with all of this going on with the pandemic, you're seeing all the movement, and even Rochelle, I think, and Angela, I believe, touched on this, how it's kind of changing the look of it, right? How everything's changing. The pandemic just changed the look of it. Like, schools are now that even weren't thinking about virtual or virtual, and they're not going back. They're like adding to. It's like, okay, we have face-to-face, but we're going to have virtual still. And, signatures, they use Adobe Sign or whatever, DocuSign. And now it's not like, oh, we're going to take it away. No, it's like, okay, we're just going to keep that and we'll just add it to it. So it's changed the look and feel of things, the foundation, the landscape, right? So how do you think this pandemic has changed the look and feel of women in careers? I know you said some of you talked about how they're kind of looking for themselves and seeing different ideas, but I'm even seeing a lot more women going into entrepreneurship, because then they have some flexibility, right? But I don't know. I just want to hear from you. How do you think the landscape is changing, and what do you think you could do to contribute to it, to be able to help it to change into the way you feel it should look? Because it's changing. It's changing regardless. But how do you think it should look? And how would you contribute? Because my thing is always about not how I wanted something to be, but how am I going to help for it to be that way, right? Because it's easy to tell somebody, do this, do this, do that, but what are you doing, right? So let's start with Lisa this time.
This is a tough question. But
you want me to get the next generation and handle it first, and you come up with what you want me to do. Whatever it is. No,
I'm okay.
You got it?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Go for it.
One of the first few things that pops in my head is just the fact that you stated that a lot of women are taking and creating their own businesses and stuff like that. And I think even before the pandemic, this is something that was lacking, just because a lot of these businesses that have been created too are, say, in the art field, in the art spectrum of this professionalism, and art has always been seen as something that's like, you'll never make a career out of that. And it's another way to incorporate this conversation, because there's so many things that we're taught in school that, like, if you want to make money, don't do that. Like, ignore acting, ignore theater, ignore painting, ignore music, all of this stuff. Like, that's drilled into our head that you're never going to get nowhere with that. And I think during this time, so many people have been able to explore that and see and actually, do tutorials or teach other people how to do these same skills, because, not everyone has the same skill in each city, so more people could start learning about these different things. And I think the way I would contribute is just navigating and having, especially because my end goal is working with high schoolers and people who are underage, is incorporating that into some form of the curriculum, like speaking with the principal or seeing the higher authority, because at the end of the day, you could be at one level, but if you don't have the support of the higher level, you're just going to get shut down and keep getting shut down. And I think just being able to do that lobbying work and making sure that, you know, we're analyzing the policies that are currently in place or that are currently holding back, because a lot of it, especially with the young generation, has to do with schools have a specific thing that they have to focus on, whether that be when Obama created the No Child Left Behind Act, like so many schools that were within the poverty line were left out because of these policies. So it's like analyzing these different things that have been in place for years and seeing why hasn't this been updated, why this hasn't been changed, especially because after this pandemic, we've noticed so many different things that you've all brought up, like that we haven't noticed before or that we have, but people have just thrown under the rug.
Mm-hmm.
So it's saying like what change could come, like how and why can we do this?
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. We see that our 20-year-old is weighing in. Okay. So Cheryl, how would you weigh in on this?
So interestingly enough, when I started looking at kind of some of the things that were happening within the pandemic, and how women in particular, because women, they're my jam, they're my people. That's who I, you know, that's really who I serve. And when I really started looking at them and how many of the women that I work with, you know, they are, even though they're in corporate, they have their corporate careers, they are also working on building their own legacy by creating their own business. And that, just seeing that there's women that are, I got my 9 to 5, but when I leave there, I'm working on something, and I'm working on something that's going to allow me to step into my next, no matter when it is, you know, the next year, the next 3 years, the next 5, whatever it is, but to start to build that. I started to shift my business a little bit, because I wanted to say, you know what, I see what it is that you're doing, and I want to come alongside and help you, because I was a corporate woman, 20 something years, who transitioned into entrepreneurship, you know, and so I understand that journey. And for me to see that happening at a much faster pace than I've seen it before, I feel as if my voice and what I have and what I can contribute, you know, aligns totally with that. And I can come along and say, okay, first of all, let me tell you what not to do, right?
Right.
You know, and then really show them and guide them and guide them, you know, around some of the pitfalls and some of the landmines that I walked right into because I didn't know. So for me, I see that happening, and my answer is to bring my expertise, my experience, my knowledge, my skill, everything I've accumulated over the past decade to say, I'm here to help you navigate this journey so you can really get where you want to go and probably get there quicker because you have me on your team.
Now, see, this is good. But now my question would be too, because this is something that comes up, and Angela, I want to hear from you and how that looks, but also keep in mind that they talk about having your career to be pandemic proof. Okay. And they're saying like entrepreneurship is not pandemic proof because a lot of the small businesses got hit hard. Right. So Angela, how do you see everything looking? Oh, you're muted like me. So you've already got the Dr. Kim going.
So I think what's really needed is how jobs are structured. I think that what I've seen is employers being a little bit more flexible with schedules and allowing specifically women to be able to leave or take a longer lunch or come in at 7 and leave at 3 versus doing a 9 to 5. So I've seen a few friends of mine, they were able to kind of switch and work with their employers. So, you know, along the sides of that, and Lisa kind of mentioned a little bit, is being an advocate for yourself. Like this, we're all learning. Like this whole COVID thing, yes, it's been 2 years, but we're still learning and we're still having to adapt. and to work together. I've seen a lot more tech jobs open up. I've seen a lot more women in tech, which is amazing to see because they have kind of been outcast. It's kind of been a quote unquote man's job. But with everything going more digital, like you said, with DocuSign and you know, signatures and things like that, you know, women are great to be able to work from home and do that tech lifestyle. But definitely being an advocate for yourself. You can change policies. These policies in your company might have been written 20, 30, who knows how many years ago, but they didn't deal with what we're dealing with in present day, you know? So don't be afraid to be an advocate for yourself and even make that suggestion to HR or your supervisor because we are the change. And if we don't speak up, change can't happen. And we're kind of almost like test subjects right now. We don't know where this is going to go. You know, we've kind of known like what we've experienced the last couple of years with COVID, but will it get worse? I don't know. A lot of people have had the flexibility to be able to work at home. I'm not one of those people, but I know a couple of my girlfriends have been able to. And kudos to them. That's fantastic for them. So yeah, just being able to speak up for yourself, being an advocate, you can make a difference. You can make a change. Your voice matters. If I could say that again, your voice matters. It really and truly does. Find a solution. And if you see an issue or a problem that maybe is not working out in that policy that was written many years ago, let's change it. Why not?
Exactly. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, Rochelle, you want to weigh in real quick? Because I'm gonna have to dip in my last little.
Yes, because you know, I'll get to talking and be running my mouth. So
no, I'm just like, me too. I'm having a good time.
I agree with all three of the ladies. I think there are some changes that need to be made. And while they were talking, I just thought of a couple of things. One is there's going to be people that have a gap, women. Okay, we're talking about women. There's going to be women that have a gap in their employment because of this pandemic. When they're ready or when things get back to whatever is going to be the new norm, so to speak, employers should not look at that gap and look at it negatively and understand that that gap is due to the pandemic, specifically when the resume shows that they have had a very nice career history and then there's this gap. So that's one thing. The next thing I thought was, you know how you get FMLA when you have to take care of a loved one or something like that, depending on what your company's policy is. How about allowing women or men, okay, I'm put it that way, but women to have a specific FMLA. So if this pandemic or COVID-97 happens, there's an avenue where they can take some time off without the fear of losing their job, up to 12 weeks, without the fear of losing their jobs, to get things streamlined. Maybe, you know, do a rotating babysitting thing, or, you know, but have some time to figure it out without them stressing about, you know, if I don't get back to work in X amount of time, I'm gonna lose my job. 3 months, 12 weeks is a pretty good amount of time to figure some stuff out, specifically when you know you got to go back to work. The next thing is having a diverse amount of candidates for these positions that are, quote, now open, that women have had to leave due to the pandemic to take care of their kids. At least making sure that if you're hiring, I don't care if it's technical or non-technical, that you have at least 2 women candidates that you've identified that are right for that role. And even though they may have been displaced from their jobs during the pandemic, at least making sure that women are considered for these roles and not excluded because they've had to take time off for the pandemic. And then the last thing I thought of was having a, I kind of want to say, easy way back into the workflow. If someone has to come back to work, maybe start them off at 2 days a week in the office, 3 days a week, or something like 20 hours a week, and, you know, build up to 30, 32, 30, whatever, until you can, but, you know, it ain't easy working at home, and it without kids, and it really is not easy when you're working at home and you got kids and you got to try to help them with their school, or if you got children under, you know, that are not in school yet, it's difficult. I mean, it's not easy without the kids, and so it's really complicated with. So if employers can implement some of these things when women start to return back to work, I think it'll be very, very, very beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be very helpful, and they won't feel so jaded or some kind of way, so to speak, because they had to take this time off. And employers won't be looking at them some kind of way because they had to take the time off. Everybody has suffered from the pandemic. We just need to have some compassion in our corporate Americas that are mostly ran by a man. But we need to have these men to have compassion with regards to what's going on in a woman's life, and what's gone on in a woman's life during this pandemic.
Exactly. So, and I totally agree with that. Compassion is the key. It's the word for the day, right? And every day, because that's how we're going to get through this. It's having compassion for one another. And so I want everybody to give 1 minute of what your encouragement would be to women, you know, who may be having a struggle right now between careers. And Lisa, you speak to the young women who are having struggles going into the market during this rough time, actually entering it during this rough time. And then the others to speak to the ladies who are maybe struggling with trying to balance it all and trying to figure out what to do. 1 minute encouragement. Let's start with you, Angela.
I would just have to end with don't give up. Continue to pursue, continue to reach out to your fellow sister if you need help. If you need anything, we are here to support each other and encourage one another. The gender gap already existed. I don't know if you've heard it called the she session, is what some people have called this, because, you haven't heard that? You see, now I'm like, you talk longer than my minute. I got to hurry fast. No, the C-section is what they call a recession because, you know, women are disproportionately hurt in our roles in the workplace and at home, and it's finding that balance. So just being persistent, being positive. I'm a religious person, so, you know, I got to have my Jesus in my life. That really helps me. But reach out to a friend. Don't give up. Know your worth. Know your value. You can make it. You just stay positive. I mean, really, mental health is so important. Stay positive and take 5-10 minutes, 15 minutes out for you, whether it's a bath, whether it's a walk, whether it's picking up that Bible. You just take time for you because you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to help better other sisters.
All right. Thank you. All right, Cheryl.
So my takeaway for you is give yourself the gift of giving yourself permission. You know, you don't need permission. You don't need validation. You don't need any of those.
Drop the mic. She didn't drop the mic. Okay.
Because I think once you start to take control, then the way you manage and the way you see and the way you perceive and handle and move forward will change, and it'll be different. And you can start to make real sound, fully aligned decisions for yourself in spite of a lot of what's going on around you. So, you know, just give yourself permission in whatever way you need to.
Excellent. Thank you. Lisa.
I would say believe in change and believe in yourself. Acknowledge the imposter syndrome type of characteristics that you see in yourself and continue to grow and have those self-reflections. To acknowledge that you're at some point in your life right now, but that doesn't mean won't get to your next goal with the next period. Life doesn't have a time frame. We'll get there when we'll get there, and it doesn't matter how long we get there. I mean, it doesn't matter how long it takes us to get there.
All right. Thank you. Rochelle, do you have one last word to say? 1 minute?
I do. So first of all, women, if you are out there and you think you're having any problems with mental health, definitely seek out somebody to talk to. Create your village again. It's so easy to get a couple of moms and just create a village where you have that support. If you need somebody to watch the kids while you go take a walk, just to get your mind together, create that network, specifically for kids who are little and you can't take a 15-minute walk without leaving them in the house. But, you know, build your village again. There's nothing that says we can't have a village. We've just somehow gotten away from that. But it's very important to have that and reach out to people. If you're struggling in any arena, it's not shameful to ask for help. It is not shameful to admit that you're struggling with whatever it is, depression or anxiety or whatever it is. that person you reach out to can be a lifesaver for you, just allowing you to talk and get things out. That sometimes that's all a person needs, but sometimes they feel so closed up and isolated that they'll be judged. They don't do that. Knock that stuff out your head and reach out to somebody.
That's right.
Whether or not you're ready to do this, reaching out or not, you know what? Time is wasting. It's not going to always be this way, but you have control of the moment you're in right now, and no one else has control of that.
Exactly.
So reach out. Don't be
Yes.
afraid to reach out. That's a big, brave, bold,
Big
and
thing.
very strong move.
And don't mean to cut you off, but we got to get ready to get down. So we want to say goodbye to everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you. Please take care of yourself. Take time to be good to you. Reach out. We're here. We can begin your village. Take care now. See you next
Bye,
time.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.